Hey guys, my name is Matimio, and now that I've had a chance to play the Battlefield Hardline beta for a couple of days now, while I've enjoyed my time, it is a fun game, I also feel like it's got a fair ways to go until I'm really excited about its launch date. And so, for today, I've made a list. I've kind of thought about what I think needs to be done for me to really think that this is a game that's worth buying, to put $60 down and purchase, and I wanted to discuss with you guys and go over what I really think needs to be done to Battlefield Hardline to make it an amazing AAA title. And so the first thing that they need to focus on, and honestly this needs to be their top priority, is that because they are using the Frostbite engine, and as we know, the Frostbite engine has a pretty poor performance when it comes to the netcode, the netcode needs to be the biggest thing on their agenda. The hit registration, the hit notification needs to be all spot on, because they're basically advertising this as a infantry-focused Battlefield game. And when I hear that, and when I play the game, it's pretty apparent that they're trying to compete with all of the other big infantry-focused games like Call of Duty and Counter-Strike. I don't blame them for wanting to compete with Call of Duty. Honestly, Battlefield 4 and Battlefield 3 were also trying to compete with those games. But if you're going to be completely focused, or not completely focused, there's a couple vehicles in there, but if you're focusing on infantry-based gameplay, but it's not to the same standard as something like Counter-Strike, which is probably one of the best netcodes in the industry, you're going to have a harder time selling it to gamers who are looking for that tight-knit, amazing performance type of gameplay that you would find in Counter-Strike or Call of Duty, but they're not getting it in, you know, Battlefield Hardline. Like, this really needs to be their top priority. The netcode needs to be flawless if they want to compete with all these other great games that focus on that infantry-based gameplay. This needs to be one of the things that they are just hammering out every single day. The next thing that I think they need to do is, if this is a Battlefield game and they're gonna use the Frostbite engine, there needs to be destruction. Like, I know that there's a crane that falls on the Battlefield Hardline beta, and maybe it's just because it's a beta they haven't put in all the destruction, but the map itself felt very static. Like, when you think of Battlefield, you think massive destruction. Like, ever since Bad Company, the game has been all about destruction. That's what the Frostbite engine has been advertised as, is being able to have this massive destruction in their games and to have the world feel very dynamic. But right now in Battlefield Hardline, that is not the case. You shoot an RPG at pretty much any surface on these maps, while a couple of them will crumble, it is nowhere near as dynamic as anything like what Battlefield 4 is. And Battlefield 4 is nowhere near as dynamic as what we had in Bad Company 2, which is, ironically, actually more focused on infantry-based gameplay. And while I understand that if you have a map that is fully destructible, it leads to, you know, rubble buildings all over the place. And if everything is destroyed to the ground, you have no cover, and it can lead to some pretty poor gameplay. That doesn't excuse the fact, though, that there's almost no destruction on these maps. Like, I realize we're in downtown LA, we don't want all the skyscrapers falling down to the ground, but at the same time, I should be able to punch out some of these walls. Like, let's say, for example, I'm playing on Blood Money. I've gone towards the enemy base, I've captured some of their cash, and instead of being forced to go through one of the multiple exits, why can't I just whip out my RPG and open up a new route for me and my teammates? Now the enemy is going to have to think about it a little bit more. They're not going to know exactly where I'm heading, and now it's got the Battlefield element to it. Like, if you're going to use the Frostbite engine, which is known for destruction, but also known for having some pretty shoddy netcode, if you're going to use that engine, then you need to at least have some pretty amazing destruction in there. It doesn't need to be as crazy as Bad Company 2. I realize that having and designing maps around that is challenging. And honestly, Bad Company 2 struggled with it because once those maps got completely destroyed, it led to some mediocre gameplay. But there still needs to be destruction in Battlefield Hardline, at least in my opinion. If I know someone is camping around the corner, and if I rounded it, he would have the advantage, but if I have an RPG and I'm able to punch a hole through that wall and then flank him, giving myself the advantage, that is the experience I am looking for when I play a Battlefield title. If you're going against Call of Duty and Counter-Strike that uses engines that solely made for those first-person shooters, essentially, and then you're not going to take advantage of what your engine is all about, it seems like you're missing the point of it entirely. And honestly, in my opinion, what I would really like to see them do is take the destruction further than what they had in Battlefield 4. Like, I like that they ramped it up from Battlefield 3 because Battlefield 3 was nowhere near as destructible as Bad Company 2. And while I don't think they need to push it as far as Bad Company, it should just be a little bit lower than that. If I have an RPG and I come across a building where I need to punch through multiple walls to get to the other side towards an objective, let me have the option to do that. People are looking for the advancement of Battlefield. They want to know why Battlefield Hardline is going to be the next Battlefield game and what it's going to bring to the series. And right now, if it's just a different theme with no destruction but focused on infantry-based gameplay, in my mind, it's going to be a harder sell. Like, if you're not going to bring destruction, you know, you got some cool Levolution moments. I'll give you that. The crane falling down is pretty awesome, and it's actually one of the best Levolution moments we've seen in a Battlefield title. But if your destruction is almost non-existent, or you're not pushing it to the next level and really creating maps with that in mind, I think you're missing the point, and honestly, it's going to be a harder sell, at least for me. Like, if I don't see the destruction ramped up, I'm going to be a little disappointed. The next thing I'd like to see them do is creating customization and gadgets that are more oriented towards teamwork. What I've noticed with Battlefield is that it's sort of strayed away from helping out your teammates a little bit more, because there's just so much more customization and there's just a ridiculous amount of gadgets that they've added. A lot of these gadgets don't really help out anyone else but yourself. For example, if you're playing Battlefield Hardline and you're running around with like the gas mask and the survivalist, which is the thing that allows you to revive yourself, which honestly I think should be removed. Like, that is one of the most broken mechanics in the game. If you have that loadout, you don't help anyone out on your team. You basically just run around, shoot people. If you die, you have the option to revive yourself, but you can't give out health, you can't give out ammo, you can't revive your teammates. You're being basically a selfish player at that point. And while I'm not necessarily saying that's a bad thing, like, you paid your $60, you can play Battlefield however the hell you want, I still feel like it's on the shoulders of the developers to try to facilitate that team-oriented gameplay. If you only have gadgets that help people around you or anyone around in the vicinity, then those are the only gadgets that people can use, and so people are more likely to use those gadgets. I know it's a crazy concept, but if you have millions of different options that only benefit the player that uses them, you're going to have the problem where people are just going to be greedy. They're going to be selfish, and they're going to run with these loadouts that only benefit themselves. And then at that point, why am I playing Battlefield at that time? Like, I could go play Counter-Strike, I could go play Call of Duty that does that very well. If I'm going to play Battlefield, I want to have a team-oriented gameplay experience. And that doesn't mean that there can't be a wide variety of different gadgets. Like, you can still make it so that gadgets feel unique, and there's a lot of them, but just with unique properties. The example that I thought of is, well, you could have a normal health pack that functions like it does right now, but you could also have an emergency health pack that maybe regenerates your health faster if they're closer to death. So maybe if they're within, 25% and 0, they regenerate their health faster than if they were using a normal health pack. Like, this is just one example. There are many ways that you can create gadgets that solely benefit the people around you, still have unique properties, and there can be a wide variety of them, but still focuses on helping out your team and having that team-oriented gameplay. That is what I would like to see with Battlefield Hardline. The last thing on my list, and honestly this could just be because it's in beta and they're still working things out, is that you're borrowing a lot of assets from Battlefield 4, and it's pretty apparent when you look at the customization in the game. If you try to customize your weapon and you go to the barrels and the underbarrels, it literally has the same options for Battlefield 4. Like, you could use the stubby grip, you can use the angle grip, all of those, they have pretty much the same exact stats, and no wonder people are like, this is Battlefield 4, but with cops and criminals themed, and rightfully so. Like, the kill cam is the same. Like, there are a lot of assets that they're bringing over from Battlefield 4, which does make sense because it's the same engine, and when you create something for the engine, you can use it in another game. But at the same time, if you want to convince people that this is more than just a DLC, or pretty much just as DLC for Battlefield 4, and that they should put down $60, you really need to flush that all out. Once again, this could just be simply because it's the beta, they're placeholders, they have a lot of ideas on how they're going to have the customization and a lot of the other things different from the previous game. But as things stand right now, I can see why people are claiming that this is just a DLC for Battlefield 4 when you use so many of the same assets. But those are the biggest things that I would like to see improve for Battlefield Hardline. I like the direction that they're heading. I think they probably need to nail down the theme a little bit more. Both sides feel militaristic. Like, sure, there aren't tanks on the ground, but the fact that you can use a minigun in a helicopter, you have a wide variety of different weapons, like, they are pretty militarized. I don't know if I'm too thrilled about that. But honestly, if they're just able to nail down the points that I talked about earlier and improve upon those, I'm going to be a lot more excited for Battlefield Hardline. I think the game has a lot of promise. I enjoy the gameplay so far, but I still think there needs to be a lot of improvement. But I'd love to know what you think about this entire topic. Are there some things that you would like to see changed in Battlefield Hardline? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? Let me know down below. But until tomorrow, guys, have a good one and take it easy.